Hello and welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Introverted Nerd Watches. I am Reese, your beautiful host. And in this episode, I watched Fear the Walking Dead, Season 4, Episode 4, Buried. So we are a quarter way through the season, everybody. And this episode, I have a lot to say about it. So before we get into it, you should subscribe to the podcast. Just go to Apple Podcasts, subscribe so you can get the new episode every week. You can stay up on everything that I'm doing, because there's, a lot going on. I'm a busy lady. If you don't use Apple, you can subscribe in Google Play and Stitcher, TuneIn, everywhere you get your podcasts. This podcast is available. And when you subscribe, take 2 to 5 seconds, and leave me a 5-star review because that will help me out. It'll get me more exposure. It'll just be a beautiful thing. So let's get into Buried, because I was sort of on the fence about this, the way they've chosen to tell the story this season. The flashbacks, the flashbacks specifically is what I'm talking about. And this episode is when it's starting to become a little bit unwieldy, and I didn't like it that much in this episode, the flashbacks, because see, it's starting to feel like the flashbacks are only there because they wanted to do this crossover with Morgan. I get that they wanted to do the crossover. I have no problem with Morgan being on this show. Since I'm not one of the people that stuck around, I feel like I can't even complain about it. I have no problem with Morgan or any of the new characters on this show. But, obviously, if you've been around, if you've put in the work for this show, and you followed the first 3 seasons, I don't know how you would feel. Maybe you feel differently than me, but we're starting to run into a little problem with the flashbacks, because we had a flashback in this episode of 2 people who we haven't seen in the present time. Madison and Mel have a nice conversation. I actually like the scene between them, but who saw that? Because Alicia, Lucy, and Strand are giving their story to Al, and they're telling the story of this day, but none of them are there when Madison and Mel meet in the parking lot of the stadium. So I don't know whether the flashback we see of Madison and Mel is being told to Al by one of those 3 people, or whether it was just a flashback in the episode, that it was just like a throw-in flashback that they gave us. So that's a problem to me, because it doesn't work. It's just bad storytelling to me to have. If you're going to tell the story through flashbacks, you have to have people that are you have to have people in present time and in those flashbacks. They have to cross paths. They can't just be just random throw in flashbacks, because then it starts to become like, why didn't you just hold off on the Morgan crossover until the halfway point of the season, until you got into present day, because it seems like it would be just a lot easier to tell this story if you're just going it just seems like it would be a lot easier to tell the story if you were just going to go chronologically, if you were just going to go if you weren't going to kill Nick. I know everything changed because Frank Delane wanted out of the show, so it would just, they needed to find a better way to do this, because this is not the kind of stuff that I want to be thinking about. Now, I didn't hate this episode, so I don't want anybody to be listening to think that I hated it, but I did not like it that much. And I'm also having a problem with the Madison thing. It feels like it takes more effort for them not to mention Madison than for somebody to ask the question, because they're all telling this story. The three people that are telling Al their story, and she's recording all of this. They're all talking about Madison, but Al, our journalist, is not asking the question. She's not saying, there's no follow-up. They're telling the story, and Madison is all over all three of their stories, but she's a bad journalist. Not bringing up Madison makes her a bad journalist. And I don't know if that was because then it started making me think, well, is Al actually a journalist? Is this just some shit she came up with after the apocalypse broke off? So it has me thinking like that. And I'm not sure if they want me to be thinking like that, or if they're actually trying to play her as a good journalist, and I'm just not buying it. So yeah, those are two of my big problems. Let's get into some of this episode, because we see I was wondering, actually last week after Nick died, I was wondering who was going to stab him in the head, or if they would just sort of gloss over it, but they didn't. They show Lucy stab him in the head so he wouldn't reanimate, so that was a good thing. I don't know why that bothered me so much. The other thing that they made clear is that they know it was Charlie who killed Nick, because last week in the episode, when you see Alicia run after Charlie, the way that they show it from Alicia's perspective. And from that perspective, you can't tell. It looks like she can't see who it was that shot Nick. It looks like she can just see a girl running away, but she doesn't say Charlie's name or anything, so you don't know whether Alicia knows it was Charlie. But Alicia knows it was Charlie, and apparently she told everybody else, because Lucy is the one that brings up that Charlie is who killed Nick. So they know who killed Nick, which is really interesting, because now I'm wondering, are they going to kill that little girl? I want them to at least make the attempt to kill her. That sounds bad to me. I don't hate children. I'm not a monster. Don't hate me. But I want them to be angry with Charlie. And I want to know, because on Twitter last night, I was like, okay, so when Lucy brings up the fact that Charlie killed Nick, I was like, okay, who's going to kill Charlie? Alicia or Lucy? Like, who's going to take out that little girl? Who's going to make that little girl look at the flowers? Because like I said last week, I am one of the few people that is not angry with Charlie. I completely understand where she's coming from. I mean, her and Nick were basically in the same position. Nick killed Ennis because of whatever happened between him and the vultures, and not even the vultures. It seemed to be specifically his anger's seemed to be specifically aimed at Ennis. Like Ennis was his real, his white whale. So, and so I feel like he and Charlie were in the same position. He got back at Ennis, and Charlie got back at Nick for killing Ennis. So unless we're going to keep going in this circle, I mean, there has to be an end to it because Nick's obsession with that little girl continues in this episode. So here's what happens. They decide, Madison comes up with this plan for pairs of people to go out on a run. It was Nick and Lucy, Alicia and Naomi, and Strand and the dude Cole that has like a crush on Strand, or not a crush, but who's like, he wants to get with Strand. He wants to get some of that Strand. Crush sounds so like immature high school thing. But so she sends those three pairs out on runs, and her thinking is to send them to places that don't seem like they would have the supplies that you think they would. To send them sort of out of the to send them to places that are sort of out of the ordinary. Because the vultures have been to all of the places that, like the houses and, the stores and the church, like they went to last week. So she's trying to think a step ahead of the vultures, which I can appreciate, but why don't they leave? Which is a question, which is, admittedly, it's on everybody's mind. Everybody says that they thought about leaving. And so I can't even be mad at the episode for that. But Madison is she's determined to stay in this place. So Nick and Lucy stop at a library because everything he does revolves around Charlie. Strand and Cole stop at a greenhouse, to get plants and things from there. And Alicia and Naomi go to a water park. The water park was actually really cool. I like the setting of the water park. The sort of, it's a creepy place. You never think about what a theme park or, a water park or a theme park like that would look like when there's nobody there. Like nobody ever sees that unless you like worked at a theme park like that. We never get to see a theme park that's completely empty and, free of living things. And this, having a water park in the Z-Pac, it's like there's zombies everywhere and everything is just destroyed. Actually, I really liked it. So, what happens is, Alicia and Naomi are Naomi is not wanting to give any more information. Naomi is another problem that I have because she's not wanting to tell us anything about herself. And I kind of don't care right now. Or at least before this episode was over. Like these earlier parts with Alicia, I really didn't care. I'm kind of getting tired of the people that refuse to tell us anything, like Al and like Naomi here. So Naomi and Alicia, they come up with this terrible plan to walk through a swimming pool that is infested with walkers and to climb up a sliding board because it seems like the people that used to live in this water park sort of barricaded the stairs and they can't move anything off the stairs. And it was just like, oh, this is like, it's a fun little setting and it's a fun few scenes that we have with them, but it was like, oh my God, it is so stupid to walk through water and to try to walk up sliding boards. Like, I haven't tried to walk up a sliding board since I was a child, but the whole point of sliding boards is to what? Slide. So they are slippery. There is they are meant to be slippery, and especially water slides. Even with all the moss and everything growing on them, they're slipping all over the place. It's like, dudes, you couldn't have taken, you know, sat down 5 or 10 minutes, think of a better plan than to walk through walker infested waters. Oh, and Alicia drops her knife, which is like, everything goes wrong. It's so, I was just like, these dumbasses. I wanted one of them to get bit just for walking through that water. I was so mad at them for walking through the water. I get it. You need supplies. Things are desperate, especially now, because we find out at the beginning of this episode when Lucy starts telling her story that at this point on the day that they go out, they it's been the vultures have been in the parking lot for 2 weeks at that point. So they're starting to get desperate. We find they're getting really desperate. They're eating they're stretching their rations by putting cattle feed in it. So they're eating the cattle feed. They make these gross pancakes, and it's sort of a replay of what we see. Was it the second episode where we finally saw Another Day in the Diamond? It's when we saw them. They started the episode, they were eating pancakes, and it was just such a happy time. And in this episode right here, we get a sort of a replay, but instead of the good pancakes that they were eating when the stadium was flourishing, there are, these cattle feed pancakes that Lucy can't even cut. And Strand is offering to pour syrup on them like he was doing in the second episode, and they refuse. Lucy refuses because she's like, no, we have to save that. That is the only syrup we have left. We have to save it. And it's this really kind of sad contrast between the happier times, which it was only 2 episodes ago that they were doing well, and that there was 365 days in the diamond, and they were sort of working like this machine, and then everything has gone downhill pretty fast. I think 2 weeks is really fast for their food to be running out at this, because Nick was talking to Charlie when Charlie was asking about the food supply. Nick was telling Charlie that they had enough food to last them for a while, but I guess that was because he was planning on how much of the crops they were going to be able to farm. He was depending on the crops. So once the weevils took over, it really messed everything up for them. They're in a really bad way. So as far as Alicia and Naomi, they get to the top. They find medical supplies, but they get attacked by two silent zombies. And okay, one more thing about this whole thing at the water park. Have we all agreed that walkers can use steps or nah? Because this is one of the Scott Gimple Walking Dead, sort of sloppy things that they do on The Walking Dead that I see creeping into this show. So I'm not sure whether we've seen walkers walk up steps on this show, but like I said before, the people that used to live at the water park barricaded the steps. So I'm like, well, why would you barricade the steps unless you think the walkers can walk up the steps? We haven't seen, In the last season of The Walking Dead, season what was that, 8? They have walkers. They have a whole scene where walkers walk up the stairs to a house and attack everybody. And that pissed me off so much because I was like, no, walkers can't walk up steps. They cannot coordinate like that. They don't have the hand-eye coordination to do that type of shit. So what? They can walk, and it's like, okay, they can walk upstairs when it's convenient for them to walk up the stairs. It's annoying. I don't want walkers to be walking upstairs. And to be fair, we don't see walkers walk upstairs in this episode, but I was just like, okay, they barricaded the steps. Are they trying to tell us that walkers can walk upstairs? And in that in Another Day in the Diamond, again, they had the walkers walk up the stairs to fall into those like oil drums. So I don't like it. I'm not happy with this. So Naomi not giving information about herself. She finds a car, and it turns out she has some knowledge of cars, and Alicia asks her about that. And she brushes it off. She says, no, I don't know anything about cars. And it's like, why is that a big deal? Why is telling Alicia that you know something about cars, why is that like giving too much information? I mean, I get it. You don't want to be a part of a group. Well, just leave then. You don't have to be here. You took a shower at the stadium. You can bounce. Like, there's nobody holding you here. You don't know these people. They were nice to you, but you don't really owe them anything. You can just take your shit and bounce. Instead, she does this whole routine where she tricks Alicia into looking off into binoculars and in another direction, trying to tell her that they can go to other places. And then she like dips out like Batman. When Alicia turns around, she can't find her, and Naomi is down at a car trying to get it to go so she can leave Alicia. And Alicia gives her a little ultimatum and tells her, like, if you're here like with us, then you have to be with us. You can't be leaving me. You like, this is the second time you left me like this. You can't be doing this to us. If you're with us, you're with us. And I'm like, well, I would be, if I was Naomi, I'd be like, I'm not with you. No, like, the stadium is bad. And Naomi is telling us from like, when they're at the beginning, when they're eating their pancakes and everything, their cow feed pancakes, they're like joking about it, the rest of the group, and Naomi is sitting there with this like, really, you guys, or we're not talking about what's actually happening? Like, this place is about to fall, right? And they're avoiding what's actually happening, and Naomi is just looking at them. She doesn't want to say anything because that would be awkward. She doesn't really know them, so everybody is avoiding the issue. And so Naomi gives Alicia a little story about how, she was an ER and an ICU nurse. And after a while, she could tell that when a patient was going to die and when they were going to live. And that is her way of telling Alicia that she thinks the stadium is about to fall and that Alicia needs to talk to her mom and convince her to leave. So we'll see at the end of the episode that Alicia and nobody else will do that. Nobody else will tell Madison that they need to dip. They need to get out of this place. They don't want any smoke with the vultures. It is time to give up. And it's 2 weeks. I don't get the vultures. That's a part of my problem. I don't get what the vultures want. So let's talk about Mel and Madison, the stray flashback in this episode. Mel and Madison, so the vultures continue to be dicks. Or it's Mel and Ennis continue to be dicks. And it's Mel in this episode. So Madison, after everybody else leaves, Madison is she's looking out over the vultures, waiting for her people to return. And she Mel is like waving his arms at her. He sees her. And then they talk over the radio. She's like, "Did you want something?" And he's like, "Yeah, you got any relish?" And I'm like, "Dude, what? Do you have any relish?" So Madison walks out to him to talk to him, and he's standing in his like he's dressed like one of the Beatles from the Yellow Submarine. He's wearing like a Beatles jacket. It's not yellow, but it's like he looks he looks like a clown. It is so bizarre, like a hipster clown. It's like he's wearing pajamas, I think. They're like silk pajama pants, and it's like different prints, and it's just so weird, but his hair is so nicely done and he's clean shaven, and it's like where are you guys? What are the vultures doing? What are the like that's what I want to know. What are the vultures doing? What I don't get them. So Madison goes out and he's grilling hot dogs, or wieners as he called them. And he's Madison, he's like, "So I know you don't have any relish," because he tells her, he makes the comment that, "I know that you probably used up all of your ketchup and mayonnaise and mustard, because that's what everybody does to dress up the food that they don't want to eat." And it's just being an asshole for no reason. And he doesn't have a gun. I don't see a gun on him. I don't see a gun on any of these people. How can you be like this when you don't have weapons? How can you be sure that people won't just say, "You know what? Fuck this. Let me shoot you in the face"? Because what they're doing is they're not being aggressive. They don't seem like a physical threat. What they're doing is really demoralizing. And it just, I don't know why other people wouldn't be like, when somebody is taunting you the way that the vultures are taunting the stadium folks, you have to fight. Like, eventually people would just be like, "You know what? Forget it. Let's drop the gloves. Let's fight." Because when you're the person that's on the side that Madison is on, the people that are suffering, it's like, "You know what? Fuck this. Let's just beat their asses." That's the only sort of consolation you get. You don't have any food. You don't have anything else. You don't have any other recourse. Let's just kill them. Let's just beat them up or kill them and move on with our day. Because this what they're doing is just really, I don't get it. Okay, what do the vultures want? What do they expect to get out of the stadium if the Clarks use up all the resources? They don't want the food. The weevils destroyed all the crops. They're running low. The people in the stadium are down to eating the cattle feed. So do they want the cows? I mean, eventually they have to expect them to eat the cows too. So it's not like they're going to be cows left, or any beef left afterwards. So once they run out of food, what do the vultures want? Because actual vultures, while they come in and eat what's left over of a dead animal, it's usually the parts in the animal that other animals don't want. There's usually a lot of that left. So whatever another animal is not eating, that's when the vultures eat, but they get a lot of stuff left over. I don't know what these vultures are doing, these human vultures. I don't know what they're picking from. Like, what resource do they think the stadium has that they want? Do they want their weapons or anything? They haven't said anything about about wanting their weapons, except the Mel told Madison that once this is all over, he would be wearing her gun on his waist once the stadium fell. That's the only mention they make of guns, except to tell them, how much information they have about them. So, what do they want? Like, they aren't scary to me anymore. Like, when I first saw the vultures, I was like, wow, that's interesting. They come in at night, with their big shining lights on their cars. They just roll in like that and they just sit in front of your place. And that was like really intimidating. I was like, wow. But now they're just sitting there tailgating. He's grilling. Like, Mel is grilling. And they're going out on runs too, getting their own food. Like, they show up in this episode, they got military meals. Like, they went on a run and they found a lot of food and they're just having a good old time. Like, they're waiting for a baseball game to start in a few hours. It is so bizarre that they're still sitting there and they're laughing and having fun. Charlie and Ennis are sharing some graham crackers, having a good old time, joking. So I don't know what the vultures want. There has to be more. For Nick to be as angry as he was, there has to be more to what happened. And this is another problem that I'm having because Nick is dead. We find out later in the episode that Naomi is also dead, or at least the Clarks think that she's dead, that she fell when the stadium fell, that she didn't make it out of the stadium. So, if all of these people are dead in real time, then what we see when the stadium falls had better be really damn good. So back to Madison and Mel. So Mel is starting to tell Madison about how he used to come from a community like they have at the stadium, except his was on a cattle ranch, and he's telling the story. He's trying to tell the story, and Madison cuts him off, and she's like, I know how this story ends, and she goes through the story. Like, you tried to warn everybody to leave, but they wouldn't listen to you, and blah blah blah. She goes through the story, and the look that Mel the look that Mel had on his face when she cuts him off to like say, I know your story, like, you're not special. The annoyed look on his face, like, really, bitch? Like, you interrupted me? Like, it was such a just the expression on his face was so great. I cracked up when I looked at his face because he just had this like stink look on his face, like, oh my God. And so I was just, that cracked me up. I like I said before, I like the scene between Mel and Madison. And Mel asks her, like, what are you doing? Like, what did you come out here to talk to me about? And Madison says she's here to extend her offer again. And the offer is to invite them into the stadium and they can just share everything. And, they can live together in this community. And Mel looks at her like, you really believe that? And that is why this place is going to fall. And he, in turn, extends his offer of letting Madison and I guess the rest of her group join the vultures. And, she's like, I will never join you. And she turns to walk away. And this is when Mel stops her and says, you know what? You're wrong about my story. I didn't tell my people to leave. I told them to stay. And there was wildfire coming, and he told them to stay, and they could save their home and continue to live there. And he was wrong. He and Ennis were the only two to get out, and the fire just, destroyed everything. It killed everyone, and he heard them screaming while he and Ennis were driving away. And that is Madison's warning, I guess. She is trying to hold on to this place so hard. She is white knuckling it, holding on this place so tight. And it's like, girl, you got to know when to let go. And maybe it's just time. It's just time to move on. And I don't know what the end game is for this. Like, if they just decide, you know what, forget it, we're leaving the stadium, we'll just pack our shit and leave. Does that work for the Vultures? Because they want their stuff. So, like, I don't. Okay, yeah, this is just another case of me not understanding how the Vultures work and what they're going to do. So let's talk Strand and Cole. Let's just go to Strand and Cole because this is short. Strand and Cole go to a greenhouse. They get attacked by the cactus zombies. And I was wondering if those zombies had been weaponized or if they had just, being stupid like zombies are, had just gotten the cactus spine stuck into them and, just obviously they can't get them out. So, or if this was another version of, Winslow from The Walking Dead, which I wouldn't like. I mean, Winslow was kind of stupid to me, the way they used Winslow in that show. But if this was a case of people like weaponizing the zombies, well, it would take a lot of work to put, I don't know. This was probably nothing though. I'm probably thinking too much about it, but that's what I do here. Hello. Read the description for the show. I overanalyze things. So Cole confronts Strand about why he doesn't like him, and Strand tells him, this isn't a case of me not liking you. I actually do like you. And he doesn't want to get close to Cole because, he was a bad person, and he shows Cole a stash of stuff that he has so he can leave. He has a month's worth of supplies stocked in the car, and he's telling Cole like, hey, me and you can take these supplies and leave together. And Cole is just really not into it. I don't know why. Like, all of these people are like, nobody has a backup plan. Like, that's what I love about Strand. It's like, he thinks about himself, and it's not a bad thing. I know a lot of people want the family sort of thing that they have on The Walking Dead, like Rick's people. They consider themselves family, and they would do anything for each other, blah blah blah. That's great on that show. I like a character like Strand who's like, yo, I like you people, I want to be in a group with you people, but I'm not willing to die for all of you. I'm not willing to sacrifice myself for all of you. Sorry, not sorry. I appreciate that about him because I don't think any of them like would die for him either. So yeah, that's just my take on Strand. But Strand, when he tells Cole this and Cole turns him down, Strand's reaction, it seems like he recognizes, like he expected Cole to turn him down. And it's almost like he used his, his hiding of food and his stash as a way to push Cole away, to say, look how bad a person I am. Look what I'm about to do to these people. Um, you know, I'm a terrible person that got people killed. Look what I'm willing to do. And he used that to sort of push Cole away from him. So he's not even tempted to be in another relationship like he was with Abigail. That was his name, right? Thomas Abigail or something Abigail. That was the boat's name because yeah, Abigail. So Cole leaves, and I don't think Cole, the guy that plays Cole, I don't think he's a very good actor, but whatever. That's just between us. I didn't love him. His whole, maybe it was bad dialogue, but the way he said it, I was just like, ooh, this guy's not good. But let's stop. I'm gonna be nice. I'm trying to be a better person. New Year's resolution, me, be a better person. It's not working out so far. We're already almost halfway through the year, and I'm still as terrible as I was before, but I'm trying. I admit I have faults. So Cole leaves Strand, and Strand, he has a little rock he shows Cole, and I'm guessing I'm going to go with what I saw on Twitter, and that this is a piece of the rock from the dam explosion. And he carries that around with him to remind him of who he used to be. And this reminds him that he doesn't want to be who he was before. And he takes the food stash that he had. He takes it back to the stadium, and he doesn't confess that he was hiding food from everybody. Now this is a month's worth of supplies for 2 people. By taking this to the stadium, this is just going to get them through a day, at least according to Strand. So, one more day is not really going to help. It's just sort of prolonging the inevitable with them. So Nick and Lucy, they're at a library. They're not supposed to be going to a library, but they end up stopping at a library. And this is all Nick's thing because he tells Lucy that he wants to get books for the stadium because people need more to fight for and more to hope for. It can't all just be about food. But this is all about Charlie. He wants to get Charlie back, and he's just really obsessed with Charlie. And it was annoying before when Nick was alive. It's even more annoying now that I know he's dead. And that I know it's all for naught. It's like, why? I don't even understand why he's so obsessed with this little girl. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like she was only with them for 2 weeks. Charlie, from the little bit of Charlie we see in this episode, she enjoys being with the vultures. She, we see her laughing and having a good time with Ennis. She is always with Ennis. Every time we see her when she's with the vultures, she is always with Ennis, except that one time when Lucy brought the book when she was sitting in the bus by herself. But every other time we've seen her, she's been with Ennis, and she's wanted to be with him. She's, she looked like she was just enjoying herself with Ennis. So she considers them her family. I don't know why Nick is so obsessed with her. Like, what? I don't get it. It just seems it's bizarre, and maybe it's a case of Nick's addictive personality sort of latching onto this little girl, but it doesn't make any sense, and it's sort of annoying, and I just want them to stop. I want him to stop. And they actually have a Twilight Zone little Easter egg. To the Twilight Zone episode, Time Enough at Last, the librarian that kills himself, or when his glasses break, does he kill himself? Whatever. It's been a long time since I've seen that episode, but they find a walker that, killed himself, or a man that killed himself turned into a walker, and we see his glasses on the ground and all that, blah blah blah. Twilight Zone. So Nick and Lucy's idea, well, not Nick and Lucy's idea, because Lucy doesn't want to be in this library. She is telling him all through this episode, like, hey, we should leave the stadium. It is time for us to go. She finds an atlas and she's like, okay, I'll open it. I'll point to something. And the first thing I point to is where we're going to go next. And we're going to start over. We can replant our crops and we can, rebuild somewhere else. And Lucy does that. And she points to somewhere that's north. And this is where Nick gets the idea to, instead of leaving the stadium, because he is like his mother and they refuse to leave, he's like, we should go out on a long run, outside of anywhere that the vultures could have been, as far as they know. And we'll go there, we'll get seeds, we'll get, everything they need to rebuild their farm and to rebuild the stadium and to make the stadium great again. I thought somebody was going to say that. I thought Nick was going to say, we can make the stadium great again. I would have been make the stadium great again. Okay. So that's what I thought he was going to say. They go back to Madison with this idea, and Madison is like, she's all for it. She's like, yeah, we can do this. And they're all excited. And this is when we go back to present time. And Al is like, how is this day the day that everything changed everything? Because this is what they say at the beginning of the episode when Al starts the interviews, is like, this is the day that changed everything. We should have made different choices. If we made different choices, we could have saved everything. It would have been better if we had made different choices. And Al asks, when she asks why that day would have changed everything, or how they could have changed everything, Alicia says she should have talked to her mom. Strand says he should have followed his gut and kept the stash a secret. And Lucy says she should have turned to another page, but she wanted to stay. They all wanted to stay. They wanted to believe. That's why Nick's dead. And it's like, why? I didn't understand a lot of, I was really getting frustrated with this. Everything that they're saying in these interviews, because it's like, they're not, okay, Al is not asking the questions that she should be asking. There's no follow-up questions. It's like, they're all talking about Madison. They've all spent all of this time talking about Madison, making a lot of references to Madison. And it's like, Al doesn't say, okay, where's Madison? It just seems like so much more work to do this thing that they're doing, where they're not bringing Madison up, than to actually have them confront, even if they don't tell us where Madison is, or if she's dead or alive, even if she doesn't bring it up, to have one of them say, if Al says, like, hey, what happened to Madison? Where is Madison? To have one of them say, we don't want to talk about it right now, or, anything of that nature, it would be better than this, where they're sort of talking around the issue, but they're making Al look like a bad journalist because she's not bringing it up. It's like when Alicia says, I should have talked my mom into leaving the stadium, Al's next question is, so what happened to your mom? Like, where's your mom? Why isn't she with you right now? stop it. It's just, I'm like, oh, it's just so frustrated. I don't even, like, I don't care whether Maddie is dead or alive or not. She's not my favorite character. I don't give a shit about her, but them not bringing her up, it's not even a good mystery. It's like, where could she be? It's like, ugh, okay. See, the more I talk about it, the more like I don't like the episode, and I don't like, I had fun with parts of this episode. Why are they doing this to me? So another thing that Strand says is when he's talking to Al is when, Alicia says my brother would still be alive. Lucy says Nick would still be alive. And then Strand says my friend would still be alive. So him saying my friend would still be alive is adding to the whole, like, is Madison dead or alive? Is he talking about Madison or is he talking about Nick? The other two were talking about Nick, but what he says is like ambiguous enough to be like, he could be talking about Nick, or he could be talking about Madison, or he could even be talking about Cole, or those other like red shirt people that I barely remember their names. So yeah, it's all sort of needlessly ambiguous, and it's like, it's frustrating that they won't talk, because this doesn't sound like the way human beings talk. They're talking around this, and it's like, stop. Speak like actual people. That's part of what was good about this show, that they actually seemed like real people that are experiencing this. And it's like, now they're doing Walking Dead type shit that I don't like. Oh, and I was trying to get away from this. So the end of the episode, they make this stop in the middle of nowhere, and Morgan, John Dory, and Al think that they're looking for a place to bury Nick. Turns out the thing that's buried in this episode is guns. They have a stash of guns. They went to the Rick Grimes school of hiding those weapons and planting weapons, because they have a whole stash of guns. And Al is pissed because she's like, wait a second. This was never about burying your brother. You just wanted a ride so that you could pick up your guns, and you're just going to continue to go after the vultures. And she thinks they lied to her about everything, because she's like, you used me. And Dory is like, you got played, Al. He doesn't say you got played, but I forget what he says, but he's basically like, you got played, Al. They played you. And, she's like, really, like, so were the stories that you told me bullshit? And they're like, no, we told you the truth. And she's like, well, how should I know that? Or how am I supposed to know that? And she's like, the stories don't matter unless they're truth. And that is a part of the problem with her whole I need your story thing, because people could, I don't know how many people she spoke to told her a bunch of bullshit. Any of those people could have made up any story that they wanted. Like, even the story that Morgan tells, like when Morgan tells that story, we know as the audience that he's telling the truth about a king with a tiger and all that bullshit. But for her, it sounds like a bunch of shit that this dude made up because he just wants to be on his way. So I don't know. Her wanting people's stories is just starting to get a little more annoying to me, and it's really one note, and I need to know more about Al, because by the end of this episode, she agrees to go with the Clarks to look for the vultures, like to give them the ride to look for the vultures, because they tempt her with telling her more of their story. So it's like, she's so obsessed. I need more information about her, because it it just makes her it makes her kind of silly, and and it ruins something that I thought was kind of good. Her wanting to document history. I wanted a character out there doing that, but now it's just like she's a dumbass. She's not really a real she's not really a good journalist. She's not asking good questions. So it's like, like who cares about this shit that you're recording? Like, who really cares about that? Unless there's something valuable that you get from people, and you're not I can't imagine anybody watching the video of Strand, Lucy, and Alicia and not saying, like, what the fuck happened to Madison? Like, why didn't this journalist that documented everything ask what happened to Madison? Um so um and Nick, not Nick, Morgan, Nick is dead on the side of the road. Morgan, during all of this, is like, hold on, wait a minute. So, are y'all gonna bury Nick or nah? Like, are y'all just gonna leave him on the side of the road? And I think they were actually going to leave Nick's body on the side of the road. Oh, dude, these people ain't shit. like like last episode, Alicia was crying over him. Um, they're all crying over him, like life will never be the same, you know. And this week, they're in the truck. Strand wants to immediately do the interviews, even though Al tells him, like, I understand you, like, you're mourning, Nick just died, we don't have to do this right now. I'm trying to be respectful of their feelings, but turns out they don't have very strong feelings about this. They want to just, what the fuck did the vultures do to make them this way, to make them like, I understand they've been in the apocalypse long enough for them to have seen a lot of death, obviously at the stadium. So they've seen a lot of death. I understand that they don't, like in the apocalypse, you don't really follow the sort of traditional funeral burial type thing, but you'd think that people that love a person will want to do more than just leave his body on the side of the road while they pick up their guns. Like, and Alicia says, when Morgan asks, like, are you going to bury Nick? Alicia's like, really? She's like rolling her eyes. She's like, oh, I can't really be bothered with all this, but whatever, I'll bury him here. And Morgan's like, no. Morgan is so concerned. Like, why is Morgan so concerned about Nick? I get that he and Nick had this like little connection, but it was really a minuscule connection that they had last week. They knew each other for a few hours at the most. So like, he's been with Nick's dead body longer than he was actually with Nick while he was alive. So the fact that Morgan is so concerned about whether they're going to bury Nick is like, okay, dude. And Morgan picks out the spot where they bury him because he's like, hey, Nick liked to plant things, right? So we'll bury him near this tree. And it's like, Morgan just met him. His actual damn family is not that concerned. They were just going to leave his ass on the side of the road. So I'm like, okay, you guys, okay. And this is when we get, I guess, what you can consider the big shock in the episode, where John Dory sees one of the bags that the Clarks have, and he's like, hey, that's her bag. And he's talking about Laura, of course. And we find out that Laura is Naomi, or Naomi is Laura. Like, this is one of the most interesting things that happened, because we find out Dory says that she never told him her real name. So I don't know, is her real name Naomi or is her real name Laura? He's been talking, like, he's been looking for this woman. He's been trying to get Al to, leave the Clarks and to go with him to find Laura. And like, what's the deal with them? Because now it's like his story about being in love with her. Um, Seems a bit more suspicious and creepy because it's like, okay, he's in love, he's looking for her. We see Naomi or Laura Laromi, I don't know. Can a poor man tell her name? Laromi. We see Laura or Naomi in this episode. I'm gonna call her Naomi. Naomi in this episode, and she's like, she seems really traumatized. So is she traumatized from something that happened with Dory, or is she traumatized by something else? Like, what the hell happened? Are we going to find out that John Dory is like this secretly crazy person? Because, you know, he is like a creeper handing out that candy and everything. Um, yeah. So, you know, and that seems like what next week's episode is going to be about. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be the entire episode, but we're going to get some of John Dory's backstory. And that takes us off of the where's Madison thing. You know, I'm not even going to speculate right now because it's just going to make me angry. I'm just going to say we'll wait and see what happened between Naomi and John Dory, because I want to know what that relationship was, because we saw how Naomi was in the like, is the person that she seemed to be running from when they met her, is that Dory? Does she think Dory was like running after her? Whatever. It doesn't even matter, because according to Alicia, Naomi is dead. Naomi didn't make it out of the stadium. So if Naomi is dead, I wonder, is Naomi actually dead, or is it a case where they think she's dead? And is that the same case with Madison? Or is it like, are Naomi and Madison like off somewhere together? Are they with the vultures? Like, why would the vultures want Naomi and Madison though? It seems like Charlie is the most valuable vulture right now. She's the one that can sort of pick out a group that they can leech on. So I don't know. I need more information about everything. This mystery is not it's not a Westworld Game of Thrones type shit where I'm like, ooh, like, where you're thinking about all the possibilities. It's more annoying me at this point. I need more information. We're a quarter way through the season. We still haven't seen, we don't know where Madison, Naomi, or Daniel is. I mean, unless we are just going to actually buy into Naomi being dead. Daniel could probably also be dead, but the last person we saw him with was Nick. So I don't even know how we would do a flashback for him, unless he showed up somewhere in real time or in the present time. I don't know. I have so many questions about so many things. I would like some answers. And I think in the next episode, John Dory is going to be telling Morgan his story about Laura. So that should be interesting because those two are really good actors. And yeah, that's all I'm looking forward to. We'll see what happens in the next few weeks. But I will be back next Tuesday to talk about the next episode. So you don't think that I hate the episode, do you? I hope nobody thinks that I hated the episode. Like I said, I was getting more frustrated the more I talk about it. So let's just end it right here. It was a pretty good episode. Maybe if I go back and I watch it again, I've only seen it 2 times. Maybe if I watch it one more time, it'll be different. So you can follow me all over social media. I am everywhere. You cannot get away from me. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at NerdTravertPod. Use the hashtag nerdywatch. So you can, we can talk to each other and I'll see your tweets. You can follow me personally on Twitter at the Ms. Introvert. On Instagram, I'm at the Introverted Nerd, and you can go to the Facebook page and like it, facebook.com/the Introverted Nerd, and that's where I leave the post for. You can leave feedback for these episodes of The Walking Dead. I leave a post every week, every Sunday. So you can leave feedback there, and you can email me at theintrovertednerd@gmail.com. So until next week, everybody, later.